and welcome to the Digital CxO podcast. I'm Amanda Razani, and with me today is Mike Vizard. How are you doing?
As always, good and happy to be here.
Well, as always, we have a huge list of topics to cover today, so we're going to start with the time.
That just shows how busy you are.
Yep. So the time for a chief resilience officer is now, according to this particular article. It says, the recent CrowdStrike outage underscores a critical need in today's digital landscape, the role of a chief resilience officer, CRO. As businesses increasingly rely on complex digital infrastructures, the risks of failures and the potential impact have escalated. The CrowdStrike incident is a stark reminder of why it is time for organizations to appoint a CRO. So what are your thoughts?
On the one hand, I would agree. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, you pretty much understand that the impact of this thing in terms of revenue for companies was tremendous, beyond measure, as they say. And I like the idea. But here's the part that I always kind of scratch my head about is I cannot tell you how many times that somebody has said, this is a wake-up call for X. And then, about a week later, everybody rolls over and hits the snooze button and moves on. So it's not clear to me why we don't, put some sort of focus on resiliency. And I don't know if we need another chief to go do that. It's a nice idea. It's always good that, arguably somebody should be in charge of it. But we do have a lot of other C-level titles. And perhaps resiliency is a thing that we should measure those titles on, including our digital CxO friends. And if the service or whatever it is we build is not resilient, then, that says something about our plans and our strategy that we should go revisit. So kind of on the one hand, agree. And on the other hand, I'm just kind of like, folks, maybe we just need to do a better job.
Yeah, I think proper communication and occasionally testing, various aspects of it to ensure that you're going to be able to be resilient.
Right. And consider what happened here. It's easy to blame CrowdStrike for not testing properly. Okay. But all kinds of people who are CrowdStrike customers implemented this update without testing it themselves or looking at it either. So there's plenty of blame to go around here, folks. And I know it's easy to kind of point fingers, but I think maybe we should just give each other a mulligan here and kind of say, look, let's make this the ultimate learning moment. And we are going to go in and not do these things and fix these things. And I think there's another article on DevOps.com that's related to this where we talk about there's a cloud oligarchy these days. We're just too dependent upon too few companies and one cascading impact and, everybody's involved. So I think we need to kind of revisit the IT architectures that we're dependent upon as well and kind of think through what are the single points of failure because we have too much confidence in things that are prone to error.
Yeah, I think every company is in a way responsible for themselves. Even though you are relying on a lot of other software or tools, you still are responsible for checking them. You can't just lay all the blame on those.
There you go. So everybody take a big, giant, first take a breath and then make a gut check and just go, hey, what are we overly dependent upon that, maybe I could do an exercise in what we call chaos monkey thinking and just start randomly making things unavailable and see what happens. Don't do that in the middle of the afternoon when everybody's using those services, but, maybe try it on the weekend sometime.
Well, moving on, now we're going to talk about CIOs as digital CxOs. So the role of the Chief Information Officer continues to evolve as technology transitions from being a tool for conducting business to becoming the business itself. The shift places CIOs at center stage with growing demands requiring them to meet operational responsibilities while also driving business outcomes. So what are you hearing from business leaders? I'll say real quickly, there's another article along the lines of this, and it says adoption of AI is becoming a central focus for businesses globally, with 91% of technology leaders considering AI as an important business priority. So this is even more tools coming into the business.
And there's even a chief AI officer now that's being kicked around. So going back to our earlier point, maybe there is 1 too many, 3 too many C-level execs being bounced around here. Here's the thing. A lot of organizations appointed specifically a digital transformation officer or a digital chief because they felt that the IT people were not sufficiently agile enough and didn't have enough business insights to go execute a plan or something to drive the revenue goal or whatever it was. Something interesting happened along the COVID near recession time that passed was the conversation shifted to operational efficiencies, and it became less about let me go build some new thing that maybe drive revenue because those things take longer and are harder. And a lot of the digital transformation initiatives, the tenor shifted to let's go in and optimize existing processes. Well, that's kind of where a lot of these CIOs already live because they're in charge of these platforms and applications. So I kind of hope that drove people closer together and that they are working more collaboratively. But, people get jealous of their prerogatives, shall we say. And sometimes it's difficult to kind of get to that level of cohesion. And I wonder, where we are on this journey. The survey and the article makes it seem like, well, I think CIOs are more business cognizant than they have been maybe 5 years ago. And they are, in many cases, some of them have MBAs and some of them came out of business units and are just, people who are not grew up in IT, but are business folks who are tech savvy or tech savvier than they, were in the past. We didn't have many of those people if you think back 10 years ago. So the nature of the conversation is changing. Businesses understand they're more dependent upon IT than ever. The types of CIOs who are filling those positions are interesting. Chief AI officer, I'm okay with the idea maybe in the short term, but if AI is going to be pervasive, then it's part of everybody's gigs and jobs. And sometimes I think that, too many businesses will be like, well, I don't have to worry about that because the chief AI officer is taking care of that. Well, that's the wrong way to go for sure. So I wish there was an easy answer here. There's a tendency to just kind of, make people in charge of something and hope for the best. But I think we need to think through this whole digital IT AI thing. It's time to maybe take a giant step back and say, hey, what do we want to be when we grow up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before, but eventually AI is just another tool in a huge toolbox of tools. So, separating it out maybe for the short term, but eventually, it should just be in that tool mix.
All right. I just don't think, I doubt we'll see a consolidation of titles anytime soon, but we need to find ways to make sure that all these titles are kind of linked together in a way that results in more positive outcomes, shall we say.
Definitely. So now we're going to talk about automation. So this is on Digital CxO. A thorough understanding of new technology enables us to use these tools to their full advantage. There is no better clue into how things will progress than looking at the trends that got us to where we are today. We'll provide a quick history of how automation evolved in the world of business over the years and use this as a rubric to look forward to what's next. This is a really interesting article, talks about the internet and cloud and just the evolution of technology to where we are today. So I encourage everyone to read it. It's called The Next Phase of Automation, Learning from the Past and Looking to the Future.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We have no shortage of automation as it is. The problem is we have islands of automation and all these different things are automated in slightly different ways. And getting these automations to interoperate with one another is extraordinarily hard. And a digital process invariably touches 4 or 5 different systems, maybe as many as 20, whatever it is, and they're all automated slightly differently. That's what makes it hard to kind of connect the dots between these things. I wonder, as we look to the future here, with AI, I'm going to ultimately normalize data so that I can train the AI model. So I'm going to show them whether it's some sort of format I created using a vector database or whatever it might be, we might be on the cusp of actually being able to use AI agents to invoke those in a way that we can orchestrate across multiple AI automated platforms that run different processes. And the whole thing, right now it's not easy, but the whole thing at the end of the day, it might become a lot easier to orchestrate these digital processes just because I'm going to use a series of AI agents that I'm going to manage and orchestrate that are going to talk to each of these islands of automation in a way that makes them more cohesive. At least that's the hope. And that's, I think, the way digital CxO should start thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody's thinking about automation and what they can automate. So it just takes better planning.
Yeah, I would obsess less about the language models, which come now in t-shirt sizes of small, medium, and large. But I don't know if I care what the LLM. I want to know how it works, and I want some explainability so that I'm not overly dependent upon it. But those things are rapidly becoming utilities. They're going to come and go by different capabilities, and I'm going to swap in and out. And the thing that will stay constant is this AI agent. So maybe we should focus more on what these AI agents are doing.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Well, now we're going to switch to robots. I like talking about all the different things going on in the robotics world. So this one is about a new startup. A startup is taking a different route in the mobile robotics business using an AI foundation model and a low-cost passive sensor rather than LiDAR technology, which is the backbone for most autonomous mobile devices, including self-driving cars and buses. This company is Vayu Robotics, which came out of stealth in October with $12.7 million in seed money from Khosla Ventures and other investors. And on Tuesday, they unveiled the first ever on-road delivery robot.
I like robots as much as anybody else, and hopefully they won't all kill us one day. But I don't know what to do with all these robots that we're now seeing. I mean, this is one of many, and it's an interesting approach, but I don't know if you're watching what's going on in the world these days, but there's a new robot being launched almost every day now. So it feels like that. They're coming faster and furious, and a lot of them are being made to look humanoid. In fact, I think there was a whole thing on 60 Minutes the week before last about all of this as well. And, they were amazed that they could have a conversation with a robot. And, it wasn't a rich conversation, shall we say, but it was, mildly interesting that could be done. They were talking about it from the perspective of the robots preventing people from becoming lonely, especially in their older years. But I'm just wondering, how far down the path are we really in terms of using these things? I get that I can build cars using robots, and those robots are pretty much confined to a physical space. Jensen Huang over in NVIDIA was talking about we need to train robots to understand the laws of physics, because one of the things they don't really get is speed and impact. And, we have a car, that's one thing, but the car doesn't really understand necessarily how much damage it's going to do if it hits something, and that can be trained. It's the next rev of these things. So I like robots. I think that, we're going to have millions of them. I'm just a little unsure about the timeline, but if I was building some sort of digital process that I probably was going to roll out in the next 2 to 3 years, I'd probably include a robot.
Oh, yeah. I think it depends on use cases, and there's so many different types of robots. So, the humanoid robots, I think we're a little ways out on that really being mainstream. But, as far as delivery, I like this use case example as far as, that last mile delivery, maybe a car or a vehicle can't get to it or something. And they can use this robotic method of delivery. Maybe it's a little faster than, if there's a weather issue or something like that. So I think it's a good use case using them in the delivery process.
I'm for taking all the delivery trucks we can off the road. I mean, it's already congested enough out there. And so if we can find some other way to deliver that last mile, that would be fabulous. So
yeah, absolutely. And it can open up some new jobs in the industry. Drivers that are kind of remote, driving them, making sure they get to their destination properly and all that kind of thing.
There you go. From their handheld device in the truck, there was the main distribution center as they're kind of flying these things around. Out of curiosity, I don't know what you think about this, but let's say I have 10 delivery companies and they're all using this capability. What's to keep these things from knocking into each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's there's going to be a lot of programming issues involved here, and training and software that's necessary to keep that from happening.
And the occasional good old boy who's doing a little target practicing, right?
And I would also say that I think I could see this kind of technology, something similar to this, if they get this down, being used for more dangerous tasks like going into caves or tunnels for rescue missions and things like that.
Yeah, one of the things that they were talking about on, I think it was 60 Minutes, but they were using drones, and you could figure that robots sort of the next level of drones to rescue people while if they're in trouble swimming. And the drone went out there and dropped some small raft type material that you can get on and kind of keep yourself afloat. And in other instances, they used the drone to drop a pulley rope to the person who was drowning, and the people on the beach just pulled them in.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool because, to the point of the video was like, hey, we don't need to put rescuers in harm's way. We have other ways of doing this.
Definitely. Okay, well, our last topic for today is AI in sales. So a global Salesforce survey of 5,500 sales professionals published finds 81% of sales teams are either experimenting with or have fully implemented AI. And it notes that 83% of sales teams that have implemented AI saw revenue growth in the last year, compared to 66% that experienced growth without using AI. Goes on to share some other stats, but what are your thoughts?
There's a lot of interesting stats in this. The most compelling one that I found was the folks who were using AI actually expanded the size of their sales staffs because they were able to justify their return on investment to go after a larger share of the market. So rather than cutting back the number of salespeople, it was interesting to see that they were increasing the number of salespeople as they got more efficient. I think here's the truth of the matter about sales. And, most of the salespeople that and come to meet you and selling you whatever it is they're selling do not really have a good handle on what the product does. And they don't have a good handle on what the buyer's needs really are. They are people who are good at engaging folks, and they're good at trying to convince you to do something. They have a knack for that, but their understanding of what it is that they're actually selling and how it gets used by the customers is often limited. I think with Gen AI, the ability to do the research and kind of understand what's going on in the market should be a lot better. More salespeople should be able to manage their own marketing and not be so dependent upon a centralized marketing function. And those salespeople should be able to tweak content more easily to the needs of a specific customer. I think it will enable salespeople to be better salespeople by a wide margin. And for that, I'm hopeful because we need salespeople. It's a vital function, but everybody who is a buyer of something will tell you that the sales engagement process that they go through is less than satisfactory. Now, here's an interesting thing, though, to think about. All right, so AI is coming to the salespeople, right? They're going to have agents that will help them do their job better. Well, do you not think that the buyers are going to have their own AI agents that will help them do their jobs better? And are these AI agents going to meet somewhere in the great ether and battle out the negotiation process? Or at some point, will they cancel each other out and we'll just have humans doing the same thing over again?
Oh, wow. That is very interesting. What an interesting concept. Yeah, it would make sense, actually. You might have an AI agent working on behalf of the buyers, too. It would certainly be able to do some quicker data analysis and give them some feedback. Is this a good decision or not?
It's going to be a funny old world, that's for sure.
There was I don't know where it was. It was on social media, but it was a really hilarious prank call that I was listening to. I guess it was last week, but it was AI in customer service. They called in for some help, and it was AI, and they switched them to some AI agent. And then they're like, is it okay if the AI supervisor is on this call? And so the AI agent starts helping them, and then the AI supervisor gets in on it and starts reprimanding the AI agent. And then they get into a big argument, and the lady is really freaking out. It was so funny. But I mean, seriously, we could see things like that happening, AI being incorporated in these processes.
And this is why we don't show people the sausage factory.
All right. Well, that actually brings us to the end of our topics today. So do you have any last thoughts?
I think this is an exciting time. There's more opportunity for innovation than ever. But as always, proceed with caution, because some of these things are, shall we say, immature. And the worst thing you can do is don't experiment on customers.
Absolutely. You heard it here. So until next week, go through and catch up on any past podcasts you may have missed, and then share with us what articles you're most interested in on today's, and let us know what do you want to hear about in the future. Have a good day.
We'll see you next time.